So anyway, I was earning cryptocurrency and earning stake in this platform. And this stake gave me voting input, right? So like the way I earned $600 on that post because the stakeholders voted for my post, right? There's millions of posts on this platform and everybody's voting all the time. And there's inflation happening all the time. So each day this currency is being issued from the blockchain and getting distributed between all of the content creators. And which content creators get the currency depends on the way the curators, the voters, vote. So the ones that they vote for the most obviously get the most money. The ones that don't get any votes at all obviously don't get any money. It benefited me to keep that $300 locked up in my account because as I kept posting and making more money, making, both money that I could sell on the exchange and money that I could keep on the platform as my voting power, I was gaining more and more influential power on the platform. The stuff that I was voting for was doing better. I was also able to get curation rewards. Not only could you get rewarded in this platform by posting, but if you have a large stake, especially when you vote for things and you vote on it before anybody else, like much bigger than you, or like before like lots and lots of people discover it. So in other words, if you discover something that should be popular and then later it becomes really, really popular, you get a better reward for that. If you vote on something that has a lot of money in it already and by the time it gets paid out, it's about the same, you don't really get a reward for that because, you didn't discover it first, right? But the people who, jumped in ahead, they got curation rewards. So that gave me reason as well to want that currency, right? So in other words, whenever I went to sell the currency, there was lots of people who wanted it, right? It had utility value. It's not quite like Bitcoin. The value isn't just that I can send it anywhere and send it fast, or that it's doesn't have a bank, that it's decentralized. Decentralization is like the most valuable thing about it, but this made this currency stand out, right? It had utility value. I can use this to have influential power on this social network. And that also led me to build relationships over time in this social network. So I got really involved in this community. And I tried various different types of blogs. I was training an Irish guide dog for the blind at the time, so I did a blog about that. I also had been training as a fitness instructor, but that didn't work out. But I did a little blog for a short time. I sang a few songs. I started entering music competitions. And eventually, even though I didn't get rewarded highly for blogging about this, there was a lot of encouragement on the platform to talk about things other than the actual platform, right? But despite that, it was just so fascinating to me and I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed learning about it so much that's what I ended up writing about. Not just writing about, but I started a podcast, right? And my podcast was mainly around the politics of blockchain technology, because it is seriously political. There was a lot of things that happened on this platform. There were a lot of rule changes. Yeah, and like I said, there was no central authority that makes these rule changes. Essentially what would happen is somebody would propose a change, right? So for example, one of the changes that was proposed was, let's change it from 2 years to unlock your stake. If you start powering down, instead it should take 13 weeks, 3 months. So anybody could propose this rule change and you do it with code, right? Or if you didn't have the code, somebody would have to code it. And the witnesses would be responsible for implementing this change. They have a thing called witnesses, which you could compare to TDs or MPs, except the main difference is you don't wait 4 years to vote for them, right? You can vote them in or out at any time. Anytime. So they cross a line and they're out, right? So these witnesses are basically people on this network who run a server verifying all of the transactions, right? And this is an automated process, just like the mining. You just let your computer do the work. And one of the main responsibilities for these witnesses is that they can change the rules. If you propose something for them to change, the majority of them have to say, yes, this is a rule change that we're going to go with. They can change the rules, and we basically vote for who we trust to change the rules. If they change the rules to something that the stakeholders don't like, they're going to be voted out of their place. You might be wondering, well, what if they change the rules so that they can't be voted out? They actually could do that. That would be a really stupid thing to do, though, because if they did that, they would centralize the chain. And essentially this has happened. By centralizing the chain, the users wouldn't be interested in using it anymore. So they would leave. Where would they go? You can hard fork the blockchain. Hard forking the blockchain is when you take the code of a blockchain, copy it from like a few blocks ago when everything was working fine, recreate it as a brand new chain, but with the same history of the other chain, and change whatever you need to change to prevent whatever happened on that other chain. So for example, this podcast that I hosted on what was the Steem blockchain, the original creators of this platform, they had a very large account from when they first created it. They never used this account, and so it was never really a threat to people. Because if they were to use this account, then they would have a seriously unfair advantage. So there was an understanding that they weren't going to use it. As long as they weren't using it, we were decentralized. As that company started to dissolve, they decided to sell that massive account, the biggest account on the platform. Once they sold the account, there was no way we would know if whoever was buying it was going to use it or not. They sold it to a blockchain called Tron, and this was a Chinese-based company. And soon after they gained control of this account, they started to use it to vote in new witnesses. So these were witnesses that were not voted for by us, the network. They had more power than all of us. So as soon as they started voting, our votes didn't count anymore. So this is when the blockchain became corrupted. They centralized the chain by using that account. Once they had control of that account, they were able to put people in their company into the witness list. They had total control of the witness list. This is where it gets beautiful. They completely hijacked the blockchain. But what the witnesses did, and not just the witnesses, but a lot of developers, suddenly there was absolutely zero chance that they would be a witness. Suddenly there was very little chance that they would make much money from this platform. A group of people from this chain, they took the original code of the blockchain. And a blockchain is a chain of blocks, right? Each block is like a timestamp in which there's a collection of transactions. So here's all the transactions from this minute. Here's all the transactions from this minute. Here's all the transactions from the next minute. They copied the chain as it was, and they went back a number of blocks. They kept going back blocks until they got back to before they were all voted off the witness list. They hard forked the chain, which means they copied the entire chain and carried on from when everything was fine. But they removed the accounts that hijacked the chain. And they created a new chain called Hive. It has the exact same history as the Steem blockchain, but it doesn't have those accounts that corrupted it. So I don't know if you see where I'm going with this, but this is how decentralization works. If you can imagine our political system, and it won't work exactly like this, but imagine you don't have to go down to the voting booth. You don't have to go down to your local constituency to vote every 4 years, right? Anytime you want, you can log in on your phone and vote for the TDs that you want representing you. Anytime they slip up, you can remove your vote from them or add your vote when you see someone that's doing something good. But the point is, when somebody's doing something wrong, we can hold them immediately accountable. Not only that, but if the whole thing gets corrupted, you just take the rules, copy them, and replace with the new chain. The reason this works is simply because we have a network. This isn't a system that only works for money. Like I said, this is a blockchain. This is social media based on blockchain. You can base anything on blockchain, any industry at all. Now, the way it'll all work differently depending on the industry's needs. But we could have our healthcare system on blockchain. Doesn't mean everything would be public. The rules depend on the needs. In fact, if it was a public blockchain, you just don't support that. You don't give them your information. Don't let them make it public. The reason we were all able to move to this other chain is because it had the support of the people. The same goes for political systems. If everybody tomorrow dropped their support for the Irish government, let's say we could copy the entire system, but copy it just up until New Year's Eve of 2019, just before 2020. And then we removed the Health Emergency Act that allowed this shit to happen. All we need is the network to decide that's the chain I'm going to support from now on. And then we won. And we will win every time. That's how you give the people the power.